guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have a new hair color. If you saw my last video, I talked about how my hair just didn't want to do what I wanted it to do. It's still not where I want it to be, but it's better. It's pink. I've got my pink hair back. I love my pink hair so much. It's my favorite hair color, but it like clashes with a lot of makeup, so I don't like keeping it pink for too long. But I want it more on the purple side of pink. At the moment it's kind of like an orangey pink, but it's fine for now. But anyway, I'm back today with another video using the Anastasia Subculture palette. This video though, I'm doing 3 looks using the Subculture and Modern Renaissance together. Obviously because they're the sister palettes, I wanted to use them together. I feel like they complement each other really well. The warm tones in the Modern Renaissance complement the cool tones in the Subculture really nicely. Plus Subculture has a lot of warm tones anyway. Also, I thought I should just address the whole drama of the Subculture palette. I did give a quick review on the Subculture palette in my last video using it, but I had only used it like a couple times when I did that, so I didn't have like an in-depth review or anything, and I would have gone way more in-depth if I had have known that so many people were going to be getting dug ones. So I've used the Subculture palette maybe like 6 or 7 times now. Obviously you can see that like there's nowhere near like hitting pan or anything. It does have a lot of kickback, a little more than Modern Renaissance, but nothing crazy. And like I don't find it patchy to blend or anything. The darker shades are harder to blend, but they're not like patchy and like pulling up shadow as they're blending or anything like that. I still find them fine to blend. It's just that they're dark shadows. I'm not great at blending dark shadows anyway, so I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just gonna dip a brush into it to show you. I might dip it into Roxy because that's the one that a lot of people are having like insane amounts of kickback from it. So I'm going like pretty hard there. There is like a little bit of fallout on the bottom, but like nothing crazy. Like I would still be nowhere near hitting pan on that. I'll just show you up close the amount of fallout that's there. So like I am getting kick up, but not a ridiculous amount. It's not much more than the Modern Renaissance gave me. There is definitely some type of inconsistency with the palettes, because if everyone got the palette that I got, there would be no bad reviews. If you haven't gotten it yet and you still want to, I would recommend maybe holding out a little bit until they've fixed it all up, because then maybe it's more consistent. But I personally got a great palette, so I'm still gonna keep using it. I'm super inspired by it. I wish that I had more days off to film, because I've only been able to put up, like this is the second video I've been able to put up since it was released. But anyway, let's get into the video. If you'd like to see this and 2 more looks, then just keep watching.
So this first look is using complementary greens and pinks, which is my all-time favorite color combo. I'm starting off with the shade Edge, and I'm running this through my crease. This is going to be the transition color for both the green and the pink sides. I'm just making sure it's super blended, and I'm also running it along the lower lash line. Next, I'm taking the shade Destiny, and I'm putting this in my outer V. I'm just going to keep building it up and then blending it out until it is as blended but also has the same color payoff that I am wanting. Next, I'm taking the shade Untamed, and I'm doing the exact same thing with this, but I'm using a smaller and more precise brush. I'm being a lot more precise with my placement, but still just building it up and blending it out. And I'm also taking this shade along the lower lash line. Next, I'm going into the Modern Renaissance palette. I'm taking the shade Venetian Red. I'm going to be placing this in the inner corner of my eye, both on the lid and on the lower lash line. And to make sure it's blended, I'm just going in with a clean blending brush. Dipping back into the Subculture palette, I'm taking the shade Axis, and I'm again just deepening up the outer corner. I just actually forgot to do this while I was still using the other greens in the palette. Next, I'm taking the shade Primavera from Modern Renaissance. I'm using this to blend the pinks and greens together, both on my lid and my lower lash line. It's just a nice neutral gold shade, so it complements both the greens and the warm tones in this look. And then to highlight my inner corner, I'm just taking Cube from the Subculture palette. So I've just put on some lashes. These are my Tarte Goddess lashes, which are the same lashes I'm going to be using for all 3 looks. And then on the lips, I'm wearing Gerard Cosmetics Hydra Matte in the shade Ecstasy. So this next look is using all the warm tones from both palettes. It's a like reverse cut crease. I'm using the shade New Wave to just map out the crease and the shape that I want the cut crease to be. I'm just going in and making sure it is super blended, particularly towards the brow bone. And then I'm going into the Modern Renaissance palette, taking the shade Realgar, and I'm just using this to deepen up the crease area, particularly the inner corner. Next, I'm carving out the tail end of my crease. I'm leaving it not cut in the inner corner, but I'm just using Tarte Shape Tape Concealer to do this. And then I'm going into the Modern Renaissance, taking the shade Tempera, and I'm just using this to set down that concealer. And then just going back in with the brush I had Realgar on, just to make sure there are no harsh edges aside from the actual cut crease. Next, I'm taking the shade All Star from the Subculture palette, and I'm just using this to deepen up the inner corner, kind of like a reverse smoky eye kind of thing. And then dipping into the Modern Renaissance again, taking the shade Venetian Red, and I'm running this along my lower lash line, just making sure I wing it out a little in the outer corner. And then I'm taking Adorn from Subculture, and I'm using this to highlight my inner corner. For my lips, I'm finishing this look off using Kat Von D's liquid lipstick in the shade Lolita. The pinks in the Modern Renaissance are my favourite shade, so I had to do a pink look. I'm starting off with the shade Buon Fresco, and I'm using this as my transition shade. I'm keeping this towards the outer corner and also running it along my lower lash line. Next, I'm taking the shade Venetian Red, and I'm using this to deepen up the outer corner as well as my lower lash line. The look so far is very cranberry-ish, so I'm just using Love Letter to add more pink into it rather than red tones, and I'm just placing it in the exact same place I put Venetian Red. Next, I'm taking All Star, again just adding this in the exact same place. I'm just using this to deepen up the outer corner and lower lash line a little more. And then I wanted to smoke out the lower lash line a little, so I'm taking the shade Rowdy from Subculture. I'm also patting this the tiniest bit into the outer corner, just what was left on my brush. And then I'm cutting the inner half of my crease. I'm again just using Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. I'm just going to kind of pat out the concealer when it gets to halfway across my lid. And then straight on top of the wet concealer, I am using the shade Electric from Subculture. Using this straight on top of the wet concealer will make it a little more intense. And then I'm just going back in with the brush I had Venetian Red on to make sure those two shades blend together and there are no harsh edges. And then for the lips, I'm finishing it off with my Colourpop Ultra Satin Lip in the shade Dopey.
Alright, so those are the 3 looks. I had heaps of trouble blending this one, but it wasn't anything to do with the shadows. It's just my eyes are so sensitive and irritated right now from like applying and removing makeup so many times that I just couldn't blend anything over it. Like, it was the Modern Renaissance shades that were giving me the most trouble. If it's unblended, I apologize, but yeah. If you did like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed already, then feel free to do that while you're at it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.